Mr. Speaker, as I rise to make my contribution to the debate on Budget 2016 under the theme Stimulating Growth, Restoring Confidence, the Good Life Beckons, we on this side of the House have already begun to inspire growth and reinstate confidence for the people of this dear land. And for this, I join with the rest of my colleagues in congratulating the Honourable Finance Minister for a budget well received. The 2016 budget estimates provides another solid platform to further Guyana's economic and social development and sets the stage of growth for the country's economy. Despite Guyana only recording a growth of 3% in 2015, of which agriculture and fishing growth was 4.2%. For the 2016 budget, agriculture will continue to contribute to the economy at 18%. I must add that agriculture has received $20.3 billion in 2016, one of the largest budgets for the sector. This is government's commitment to agriculture and the persons involved therein. In 2016, we will continue to improve rice cultivation, improve drainage and irrigation systems, strengthen the regulatory framework governing the fisheries sector, and promote large-scale agriculture in intermediate savanna. Mr. Speaker, in his address to the National Assembly in January of this year, His Excellency observed, and I quote, "Climate change is an indisputable reality. Guyana is a small developing country, low-lying coastal state. Ignore the consequence of climate change at its peril. The rise in sea levels and the extremes of the weather, all associated with climate change, represent formidable challenges to our nation. We will pursue climate resilience as another portal of development." End of quote. The challenges of climate change impact heavily on the nation's plans for development of our agricultural sector. Guyana's agriculture is primarily concentrated on the coast. The potential for agricultural development in the hinterland region is known. The government of Guyana's 2015 manifesto has indicated hinterland development as a priority, with implementation of policies for development of the intermediate savannas as well as the Rupununi savanna. The intermediate savannas have long been considered as the next frontier for the nation's agricultural development. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the year of Renaissance, the Ministry of Agriculture has been working assiduously for the revitalization of agriculture in the hinterland. The Ministry of Agriculture has aligned its work program to realize the intermediate savannas as the next agricultural center and has prioritized the implementation of policies for development of the Rupununi savanna. In our quest to achieve the second pillar outlined in the budget speech, national infrastructure, we will commence the establishment and in some instances re-establish agricultural stations in each of the main eco-zones of Guyana. This is being done to nurture integration between the coast and hinterland and to increase access to the bountiful resources of our interior. Stations will be established in the Northwest District in Region 1, in the Pacaraimos in Region 8, Cato, in Rupununi Savannas, a new station at Manari, and in intermediate savannas, the Bini station will be expanded. These agricultural stations will demonstrate the agricultural potential of these areas, including demonstration orchards, nurseries, and seed production units for the production of planting material relevant to each ecozone. Breeding herds of cattle and small ruminants to provide breeding stock for farmers and seed stock for entrepreneurs. These stations will have multiple functions, such as research areas, housing and office space, mechanical and other workshops, recreational facilities, and teaching facilities. During 2015, work had begun on updating the various studies on the agricultural development of the intermediate savanna. Large-scale agriculture in the savannas will commence in 2016 with the production of soybeans by the Brazilian company New Frontier Agriculture Incorporated in the Kimia Ibini Savannas. While a feasibility study for the agricultural development of the Ruknoni Savannas does exist, this will be updated and expanded during 2016 with a view to the logical expansion in that area along the lines of the Santa Fe model, which is in the process of development in the North Ruknoni. These initiatives will create new employment opportunities, both directly and more so indirectly, as the country's economic base is moved inland and will complement other activities such as mining, forestry, and support services activities thereto appertaining. Let's look at the sugar industry for a moment, Mr. Speaker. All stakeholders must appreciate that it cannot be business as usual for our sugar industry. To resist change is wanting to see the demise of this industry. To put obstacles in the way of management's efforts to implement change is to say that one is not interested in securing employment for the majority of sugar workers, that the one is not interested in the industry becoming viable. Mr. Speaker, there is an abundance of interest in the $9 billion allocation for Gaisuco. The $9 billion will be geared towards assisting the industry in its recovery and modernization program and for budgetary support to this corporation. Mr. Speaker, the coalition government has made major changes in the management of the sugar industry. After years of failing to reach its target, Gaisuco met its target in 2015. This must be attributed to the implementation of good management measures. These are the positive signs of recovery the APNU AFC promised the people of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, for the past 2 decades, Gaisuco's former board and the past regime were warned that the sugar industry needed to address its cost structure if it is to survive and be viable. Sadly, these warnings were ignored by the board and government. The culture of cutting the industry's capital expenditure and different kinds of bailouts were instead preferred. Such bailouts included the government obtaining lands from Gaisuco and only paying for some of it, subventions from the Ministry of Finance, and latterly in 2050, the very unusual act of disposing of the Skeldon cogeneration plant to the GPL-SCI. In the absence of any program to rationalize the corporation's debt structure, these knee-jerk actions served as mere palliatives as the sugar industry's financial deficit escalated at an alarming rate. The situation was further compounded by a union, which was a product of the PPP, and whose agendas were highly ambiguous with a strong political underpinning. The present government has inherited an industry which, from a financial standpoint, is in its death throes, and from an economic perspective, would require increasing levels of bailouts to support its economic growth. This economic growth can only be sustained if the industry is reorganized, costs re-engineered, and operating deficits are reduced. It cannot be business as usual, which is what the opposition and GAU are asking for. Government is committed to securing the future of the 17,000 people employed in the sugar industry and their dependents. This cannot be done by sustaining the industry and its employees in the present shape. To maintain the status quo would spell disaster for the industry and its employees sooner than most people think. The future lies in an industry that is more than sugar. The financial woes of sugar are so grave, the needs of the economy are so great, that the transformation of sugar cannot be done gradually. Time is of the essence. The process has to start immediately. And while there will be some initial redundancies, opportunities for re-employment will be created in a relatively short period of time. Some current workers may find themselves becoming entrepreneurs in the near future. Real estate is the beginning of this process. The attitude of the opposition and GAU is difficult to understand. They had 23 years to reverse the fortunes of their estates, but did nothing except take them further into depression. Their present reaction and utterances are from the same mold: maintain the status quo. To date, neither has offered an alternative, sensible, constructive solution. The government is clear that doing nothing is not an option. Gaisuco would not have been in the abysmal position it currently finds itself in, had it not been for the following. The local component of the new Skeldon development should have been funded through the sale of land, but this turned out not to be the case, since lands were taken from Gaisuco without compensation, such as prime real estate at Liliendal and Turkana. Lands were given to the Central Housing and Planning Unit without compensation. The Ogle airstrip was given to the government as a gift. European Union funds under the accompanying measures were not given to Gaisuco except for $12 million for the packaging plant. Gaisuco had imposed a peppercorn tariff for the power it exported to the national grid, a rate so low that it was impossible to maintain the cogeneration plant to acceptable standards. To add salt to the wound, the cogeneration plant was sold to Nissan SEI, but Gaisuco's personnel still does most of the work. The goose was being systematically killed. Regarding the future, Mr. Speaker, sugar production in 2016 is projected to be 242,207 tons, a 5% increase over 2015 production. Mr. Speaker, the present attack from the opposition on the closure of the Wales Estate Factory, note, Wales Estate Factory, not Wales Estate, is political rhetoric. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Agriculture is committed to the 1,700 workers and 774 private farmers from Wales. Let me provide a glimpse of the plans for the merger of the West Demerara Estate and the conversion of Wales Estate lands into a profitable non-sugar enterprise. An aquaculture feasibility study will shortly commence. Preliminary indications are that professionally undertaken, aquaculture will be a major profit generator, providing reasonable employment. Feasibility studies will shortly commence in other crops. Work already done indicates a number of well-known crops can be successfully grown on the Wales soils. Again, profitability and employment are key criteria. The establishment of a dairy livestock business, utilizing in due course the existing factory building. An all-weather road will be developed connecting the Wales farmers to the Ifat factory. Those farmers who currently rely on punt transport will have their lands replaced with cane lands, more conducive to road transport. Ancestral lands will be retained by the farmers' communities. Gaisuco has commenced discussions with its workers at Wales, offering them alternative employment at Wales and Ifat, thereby minimizing the anticipated redundancies at this time. It is expected that a number of redundancies at the end of the year would be lower than anticipated, as the non-sugar activities will require skilled and unskilled labor, and vacancies arising at Ifat in the course of the year will only be filled by workers from Wales. Workers would be encouraged to become farmers with extension services provided by Gaisuco. Regarding other plans for the industry, Mr. Speaker, this year we'll see a marked decline in the cost of production at the East Demerara estates as the proper integration of LBI and Enmore is completed. A concerted effort is being made to reinforce the technical levels with the assistance of very experienced former technical staff of Gaisuco. The sale of lands which are considered surplus to the industry's requirements will recommence, with the proceeds applied to reducing the corporation's indebtedness to the banking system. The Skeldon cogeneration plant will be returned to Gaisuco, and an increase in the tariff per kilowatt hour negotiated. The cost of services to third parties, including drainage and irrigation, will be recovered. Value-added production will be increased at Blairmont and Enmore factories. Each sugar estate will continue to keep its expenditure, yields, recoveries, and other related indicators under the microscope to ensure production and unit costs are significantly improved. Additionally, in the 2016 budget, we have included the Sugar Industry Mechanization Project to the sum of $400 million. This is a 2-year project to inter alia purchase machinery and equipment and semi-mechanical planting, mechanical harvesting, and land preparation. From all the data we have seen, it is unlikely that the sugar business will become profitable in the foreseeable future. It is our hope that Gaisuco would not be about sugar only, but a business in which sugar is but one activity. And while sugar may be making losses, albeit at a much reduced rate, the other activities, cogeneration, other non-sugar crops, other forms of diversification, would be so profitable that when the results are consolidated with that of sugar, the business would show a profit and become cash positive. The board and management feel that this is possible. Let us all work with them and make it happen. With regards to the rice sector, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that we have some major challenges to address in the rice industry. In 2016, the Ghana Rice Development Board will continue to push its mandate to enable better services offered to farmers in the areas of research and extension, quality control, and marketing. I do believe the GRDB is indispensable in providing some answers. Some answers lie elsewhere. I do believe the Guyana Rice Producers Association has an extremely important role to play and not play politics, since one would expect that they all share common interests such as the viability and sustainability of the rice industry. The millers also have their role. Mr. Speaker, rice has been heavily affected by the present El Niño conditions. The lack of water is the main reason we will be experiencing an 8.4% decline in the industry in 2016. For instance, in spring crop 2015, hectares sown was 97,000. However, as at February the 1st, we have only sown 73,000. This represents a decline of 33%. For the areas that are heavily affected, we have the NDIA and the MMA ADA working assiduously to overcome these extraordinary obstacles. Mr. Speaker, the cost of production of paddy and rice is a major hindrance to Guyana's competitiveness in world markets. While we have the ability to produce high volumes of rice, the cost of production impedes our ability to compete. To overcome this hurdle, the GRDB focuses heavily on research and extension. Research focuses on plant breeding, agronomy, pathology, entomology, and seed production, while the extension arm promotes conditions for access and transfer of improved rice varieties and crop management practices to farmers. The board in 2016 will be enhancing its research capabilities. Research in plant breeding will be done with the aim of having increased yields for local varieties. New aromatic varieties also will be developed, supporting the expansion of the production of the GRDB 30, the current aromatic variety. Regarding the marketing of our produce, trade will be a key element in the sustainable development of the rice industry. At the Rice Conference held in July 2015, I implored all millers and exporters to let us collate our efforts and to partner with the government to ensure that we focus on finding and sustaining markets. Mr. Speaker, I must say some good work is already underway. The government will continue to make investments that are necessary to fully support the agricultural sector. Guyana has been exporting rice consistently for over 100 years. Mr. Speaker, continuing the export growth that the rice industry has experienced over the past 5 years, existing markets will be maintained while new markets will be pursued. A new market paddy is being pursued in Mexico, while additional markets for paddy and rice are being pursued in Europe and other countries. Mr. Speaker, the Shadow Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable my honorable colleague on the other side floor, apparently doesn't quite understand the situation with the Mexican market. Mexico is a big rice producer in its own right. Mexico, however, imports 1.8 million tons of rice from the United States under the PL 480 arrangement. I think it's all well known that the cost of rice production in the U.S. is even higher than in Mexico. But of course, that rice is being dumped, bearing in mind the special arrangement under the NAFTA treaty. Mexico is unhappy with this current situation and is looking for markets outside of the USA. And they also have rather large mills to do their own production and processing. It's in this context that Guyana is being looked at as one of the possible sources of rice. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member also referred to the Venezuelan situation. In 2010, the previous government negotiated an arrangement with Venezuela for a very high price, the highest price of rice in the world at the time. I think it was $790 a ton. But this was in exchange for oil at $120 a barrel. Venezuela got to the stage where the cost of barrel, as you see now, is at $27, and they will not continue to pay for rice at $790 a ton. And the previous government was informed of this since 2014. So we inherited the loss of the Venezuelan market. Notwithstanding that, Mr. Speaker, while at the time of negotiation our rice market was 70% Venezuela, currently it is just around 30% because new markets have been found, as indeed Portugal and Italy take as much rice as Venezuela took from us. So marketing is under control. With our marketing situation, some good news emerged with the GRDB 13, Guyana's first specialty rice, or aromatic rice. After introduction in domestic markets, we are now preparing to trade this high-priced product on the international market. Aromatic rice is currently being traded at $700 to $1,200 per ton, as compared with the current market price for regular rice between $350 and $450 per ton. This could very well carve the future directions for rice production and trade for Guyana, but it has a significantly higher market price. GRB will continue to monitor the supply and prices of fertilizers and chemicals, and will pursue avenues of having these inputs available to farmers at competitive prices. To foster the continuous growth of the rice industry, investing in key infrastructure is also mandatory. GRDB will commence preliminary work on a new headquarters, inclusive of a new quality control laboratory. Mr. Speaker, consistency has led to reliability in the industry, and the government will continue to pay emphasis and make the relevant interventions. We will not stop here. We will ensure more markets are tapped into, with a view to Guyana's rice being available worldwide, expanding from the present 38 countries to which we currently export. Mr. Speaker, I could perhaps understand the concern of the honourable member on the other side of the House. He alluded to $100 million that was given to him, which he claimed was to give to farmers to offset production costs. However, that sum has never been accounted for up to this day. Indeed, in fact, Mr. Speaker, under the previous arrangement, the Rice Producers Association received $2.5 million every month from. There was also the $2.5 million per month made available to the RPA over a number of years, if not decades. And to date, the Rice Development Board has no no altered statements or anything for that amount. And that is why the new government stopped that transaction. Mr. Speaker, to move on, cognizance must be placed on the nation's rising food import bill. In 2015, approximately $145 million or 30 billion worth of food was imported. This represents a 34%.
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes remaining.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes extension so that he can conclude his presentation.
I thank the honourable member. Honourable Minister, you will be allowed to speak for 35 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will have to rush this because there are 10 units to report on and just 2 have gone, rice and sugar. Guyana's vision for 2020 agriculture seeks to change the view that agriculture is for subsistence livelihood, while it also seeks to promote agriculture as a wealth generator and entrepreneurial enterprise, producing food and not food commodities to meet local and export demands. Further, our strategy promotes Guyana's agriculture in the field of fashion and medicine, and furniture and other recreational products. The F5 strategic approach abandons the more familiar commodity approach. It targets all facets of agriculture: food, fiber, fuel, fashion, and furniture. It targets value added, etc. Mr. Speaker, while rice and sugar have overshadowed the conversations in agriculture, non-sugar, non-rice agriculture is just as important. The tremendous potential in our efforts to expand our agriculture base geographically throughout these 83,000 square miles and away from our relatively congested and climatically threatened coastline. In 2016, we will be furthering development of the other crops sector, and here will I attempt to rush, Mr. Speaker. The National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute has been allocated $872 million. In the intermediate savannas, infrastructure works will be done to enhance egress and egress into the area. The acreage under orchid cultivation will be increased considerably. A nursery will be established at Ibini. Large-scale commercial production of soybean will commence. We will also finalize agricultural development in regions 1, 7, and 8. In region 1, emphasis will be placed on increasing spice production to initially satisfy local demands, estimated at $1 million annually. The commissioning of a new spice factory will further enhance spice production in this region. The focus for regions 7 and 8 will be in commodities that will enhance food security and livelihoods and support the school feeding programs in these regions. Emphasis will be placed on high-value commodities such as black pepper, pajong, and carrots for export to the coast. Similarly, we introduced white potato cultivation to satisfy local community demands. The Livestock Development Authority has been allocated $508 million in the 2016 budget. The outlook for 2016 is a modest growth for this sector of 0.5%. While poultry, meat, and egg production is expected to increase, beef and mutton production is expected to decline, mainly as a result of the effects of the El Niño phenomenon. The expected shortage of rice bran and other agricultural product feeds will also be expected to affect the supply of feed for pigs and dairy cattle. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance alluded to the government's intention to re-energize the cattle industry through the development of a milk pasteurization plant. But, Mr. Speaker, what he did not mention is that if you were to look at the top 10 food imports into Guyana, it will be seen that milk and cream is number 1. In 2015, Guyana imported US $27 million in milk and milk imports. This represents 19% of total food imports. These figures must be reversed. Efforts will be given towards the improvement of the dairy pet sector by working towards the development of plans for the acquisition of a new milk processing plant, along with the establishment of milk collection. An approach has been made to the FAO for assistance in the development of this initiative. The swine program has been enhanced by the grant that was awarded to the Swine Farmers Association from the Ministry of Communities, which will result in an importation of improved breeds of pigs. It is envisaged that grant funding will also be made available for the construction of an abattoir and processing facility. With respect to poultry, eggs, and meat production, the authority will be given enhanced support towards the production and availability of meat and eggs in the rural and hinterland communities, with the introduction of the black giant dual-purpose poultry, a grazing animal. These birds produce up to 2,000 eggs per year, and the cockerels can go to 4.5 kilograms. This initiative will also be extended to the residential hinterland schools to reduce dependency on importation of these commodities. In 2016, GLDA will be working on the development of the local apiculture industry towards a higher geographical coverage, higher production, international quality standards. This program will involve the unemployed youth, the hinterland regions, and schools. Additionally, GLDA continues to support financially the removal of beehives, which pose a threat to the society.
You have 5 minutes remaining, Honourable Minister.
The veterinary diagnostic laboratory will become fully operational and attempts to intensify for accreditation internationally. In 2016 budget, the Fisheries Department was allocated $160 million. Having recorded a decline of 7.2%, fisheries will grow by 1.5% in 2016 due to the increase in fishing activities and moving into new areas such as deep-sea fishing. In 2015, the marine subsector raised revenue in the sum of $25 million and recorded exports of 21,568 metric tons, or $71 million. The current El Nino weather situation would affect the fishing industry as well. It could reduce the reduction in catches and lack of adequate conditions to spawn. There will also be improvements in data collection and also working with the Coast Guard to minimize piracy. Details I'll have to give another time. In 2016 budget, the Ghana Marketing Corporation has been allocated $140 million. In 2016, GMC will pursue the increase in exports to both regional and extra-regional markets. In addition to Suriname market, for instance, in 2014, our cod were exported to Suriname, 206,000 kilograms. In 2015, exports grew by more than 170%. The emerging markets will be aggressively pursued in 2015, and they'll continue to do their marketing locally and overseas. Regarding drainage and irrigation, the National Drainage Authority, Mr. Speaker, water management is a critical area of focus for the Ministry of Agriculture, since most of our agriculture is practiced in the low-lying regions of 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We need to be able to adapt climate changes where our water resources and management is concerned. Even in the height of the El Nino period, we are still faced with some occurrences of heavy rainfall that can cause flash floods. I'll move on, Mr. Chairman. This division, I wanted to expound on youth in agriculture, which might have been interesting. The MMA being allocated $237 million, agri-met service will put up more agri-met stations. The Ghana School of Agriculture will be allocated $253 million. I'm sorry I can't elaborate on this because time does not permit.
You have 2 minutes remaining.
The Ministry of Agriculture has 11 sizable units. It's one of the bigger ministries. The management of pesticides and toxic chemicals, that board will receive $92 million for next year's budget, and there will be major projects in the agriculture sector, rural agricultural infrastructural development, access dam roads improvement, flood risk management projects, and to conclude, Mr. Speaker, to achieve the aforementioned, a planning unit in the Ministry of Agriculture that will be high-performing, efficient, and adaptable will be established. This will allow for improved delivery of numerous programs and services which we provide to the public. The focus will be on modernizing management and technical support. The establishment of a planning unit will institute one overarching coordinating mechanism for agricultural policy. Technical staff will work closely with the semi-autonomous agencies to jointly accomplish the National Agricultural Strategy 2020. The dynamic nature of agriculture, factors of production, the supply chain and trade issues, a review of the current makeup of the MMA indicates that we need to ensure the roles and responsibilities are clear and relevant. In this unit, we will leverage the best to ensure public interest with the Ministry of Agriculture in an efficient environment. This will also ensure more effective management of resources by eliminating duplication or unnecessary expenses. Mr. Speaker, with the implementation of these initiatives, we will be pursuing in 2016 and over the next 5 years. I have no doubt that the agricultural sector will continue to propel the Ghanaian economy to ensure all stakeholders enjoy a good life. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I commend this budget to this House for its approval.